Welcome to the Farm and Country podcast, the place to hear the latest news, views and interviews from the heart of Yorkshire. I'm Danielle Daggett from Craven Cattle Marts, and in today's episode, First Bradford, Now the Planet, how a greener, cleaner future is being planned for the supermarket giant that started out selling eggs in Victorian Yorkshire.
Some of the best ideas are coming from the farmers who has already sort of thought about net zero.
The breed that ticks all the boxes. We report on the latest special sale at Skipton. On the money front, some wise words about the changes to government grants and schemes for English farmers. And on the farm, if you're still calving, a few midwifery tips from the Farm and Country podcast vet.
Don't let them get too fat, so restrict their intakes, that's the best thing.
So, as the cows head out into the sunshine, let's crack on. From a Bradford market stall to the UK's fourth largest supermarket chain, Morrison's can certainly claim to be a Yorkshire success story. And it's a store which makes a great deal of its support for British farmers. The company has over 500 stores around the UK and employs more than 100,000 people. It's now out to prove its green credentials with a pledge to be carbon net zero by the year 2030, as Sam Bradley found out from Morrison's Head of Agriculture, Sophie Throup.
We know that looking after the environment and thinking about how we can do more to think about climate change is something that customers are very interested in, and growingly so as well. When I started working for Morrison's, they were all customers remain interested in animal welfare, but it's increasingly about the environmental agenda too. But we also know, because as you know, for Morrison's, we're buying directly from farmers and we've got our meat processing division through Woodheads. We know that a lot of farmers, we're really keen to understand what could they do to sort of like address the climate challenge and to think about net zero, particularly after the NFU sort of set that target for the UK agriculture to think about being net zero for 2040. So thinking about those two really important sort of areas for us, obviously the farmers that we buy from, but also the customers ultimately who make the decisions and buy the food in our shops, we wanted to be able to do something to support and to do more and to help. So we set our target to be sourcing directly from net zero farms by 2030. For that reason, really, one, to give a real boost to what the NFU had already set, but also because we are an integrated retailer, we just felt that we had the ability to move that little bit more quickly and to sort of work with our farmers to celebrate and to sort of accelerate what was already being done well, but also to try and put some real resource and academic support and technical support behind getting to net zero, because it is one thing setting a plan and then another thing, knowing how to get there. So, yeah.
What will farmers need to do to get into the system, into your net zero, or is it already farmers that you've got supplying you at the minute?
Yeah, so how we're doing this at the moment is sort of by trying to support the farmers that we've got and understand then how can we sort of do almost a bit of a test and trial approach. So we've set up a couple of different ways of working. So to start with, we've selected 2 beef farms, beef on purpose, because we all know it's a real big sort of agenda point and really quite tricky as well to tackle for the climate sort of change and net zero. So we've selected 2 beef farms who we were going to work with really, really closely to take them to net zero individually by 2026. And so there's a beef farm down in Daventry and one up in Cumbria. But in addition to that, we've also got about 40 project farms. And those project farms are in each, we've sort of split them into species groups, really. So we've got half a dozen, sort of 8 farms in each of beef, pork, lamb, eggs, potatoes, soft fruit and top fruit, because those are the sort of areas that we're buying from straight into manufacturing. And so we're working with all of those farms as well to sort of measure their baseline and to understand, well, what action plan can they put in to get to net zero? When we say net zero, we obviously mean by taking emissions as low as we can possibly get them, working, on all the different measures to get emissions as low as possibly we can. But then having done that, then what is the offsetting? What's the sequestration? What's the carbon storage we can do at the other side of the balance scale, really, to get to that net zero point? And I think it's probably also worth mentioning too that we're not seeing this as every farm has to be net zero to be supplying into Morrison's in 2030. This is about a balanced supply chain approach. Some farms we know are going to be able to get there more easily than others. For some, it's going to be a harder journey. But as Morrisons, we want to be able to say that, as a collective, our farms are net zero by 2030. And that's really important, because it enables us to reward and give extra value to those farms that can get there more quickly, but also to keep supporting and working with those farms, to make sure everybody's trying to do their bit to get a bit as low as it can. And so we're also, I've taken on quite a lot of support. So whilst we can do a lot, we are by no means the absolute experts in all of this. So we're working with vets and nutritionists, and Harper Adams University in particular. They're brilliant, obviously a very trusted school and university. And so we wanted to be able to work with their team to sort of help support the research and the training that farmers need now and in the future, whatever age. So it's not just for the students of Harper, it's also for farmers more widely, because ultimately too, yes, this is about Morrisons and us wanting to try and support our farmers to get there, but it's also important for the whole of the industry, which is why we want to be able to sort of try and do our bit to share knowledge and learning across the supply chain as we can.
For direct supplies to yourselves, how do farmers get involved? Is there any advice that they can tap into through yourselves at the minute?
I mean, we're definitely seeing this as a collaboration and a partnership. It's definitely about how we can take on ideas and work together. So at the moment, yes, we have got 40 farms that are working with us on this Project Start, but obviously we've got 3,000 farms that we source from altogether. So we've got a long way to get from 40 to 3,000. So we need to sort of accelerate quite quickly. We're just wanting to almost, test and trial approach in these early stages. However, some of the best ideas are coming from, the farmers who are already sort of starting to work on something or have thought of a creative way to sort of try and get ahead and think about net zero, because I think it is a really challenging thing for us to look at, and we do need creative thought to sort of understand how we can get there and how we can think about this as a whole farm approach. So whilst we're working in project groups for beef and for sheep and for potatoes, actually there's so much that we can learn from each other, and we can think about a whole farm system as well, which is a really important part of this approach too. So it's always for farmers to come forward to us if you're particularly interested or have got an idea, because we're really keen to hear about those and understand how we can sort of include those in our overall roadmap and getting there. But we only sort of started to announce this pledge a couple of months ago. We have been doing a bit of work, as you can imagine, to lead up to it, but we're going to be trying to do as much as we can to sort of keep talking about the project so everybody can come on board, because we're so proud of working with British farmers and there's some brilliant things that already go on. So it's how can we make sure we're focusing on those and how we can all improve and address this challenge, but also give confidence to customers that we're doing the right thing.
You talk about challenges. The last 18 months have probably been one of the most challenging you've seen in your time at Morrisons, or Morrisons has seen for a long, long time. How's that been for you?
Yeah, well, as you say, what an 18 months it's been, crikey. It really has been tough. And I think our Chief Executive, David Potts, has described both sort of like food makers and retail and our shop workers as the heroes, unsung heroes of the pandemic. And I think everybody that's helped this nation put food on the plate from farm to fork is absolutely some of the heroes of the coronavirus effort. And so, yeah, it's been hugely, hugely tough. I mean, I think in terms of a supply chain piece, we're already 100% British for all of our fresh meat and eggs and milk, as you sort of say. So, that means that and because of this integrated supply chain, yes, of course, we can perhaps react a little bit quicker. However, we're not sort of just leaving things to happen. So, we all knew about this time, about sort of 14 months ago, we saw the farm gate price for beef absolutely falling through the floor as, the food service sector closed down and, and restaurants and things like that couldn't sort of go forward. And so we, had to do more proactive action. So, we were I think, led the way in trying to understand, well, how can we help support this and how can we open our steak bars and put on huge promotions on meat and really try to have a massive focus on bringing customers back into eating prime cuts and not just into buying sort of emergency minced purchases, which everybody was thinking about in that initial, it feels a very, very long time ago now, doesn't it? But when everybody was busy buying toilet rolls and massive bags of pasta and things like that, it was a different mindset to then get people back into buying prime cuts. And so, we had to definitely do things like that to try and help support into the sector. But actually, at the moment, that love of British and that sort of buying into those better cuts has continued, and that's been a good thing to see over the last sort of 12 months. So we're obviously doing all we can to continue keeping supporting British. It's really important to customers. I mean, we ask about 5,000 customers every year what means most to them about Morrison's and what we should be doing most of, and supporting British farmers comes out at number 2 nearly every single time. So we know it matters hugely to customers to get it right. So
how have you found the importing post-Brexit? Has it been a difficult process, or is it something that you found you've sort of managed to get on top of fairly easily?
So we've had a big team, and obviously, as we talked about before, a lot of things we already just have domestically produced, and I think we sort of are quite unusual. I think we make about having this country about 2/3 of what we sell is British, and because we've got all of our manufacturing sites as well, we've got 20 manufacturing sites now. So that means, I suppose that reliance on sort of imports is so much less. However, obviously we can't grow oranges very readily in this country and other things like that. So there are certain things, but we've had a really good team involved who've worked incredibly hard and had done for a very long time. So yes, I mean, there has been things that we've had to work through, but same as everybody else. But I don't, I think perhaps because of the way we're structured, we've been in a slightly better position than maybe some others might have been. But yeah, it's certainly been something that's one of the other sort of things that we've had to think about this year, really. So
Morrison's Head of Agriculture, Sophie Throup. You can check the company's climate change pledge for yourself online at morrisons-corporate.com. Coming up, tips for a healthy herd and healthy finances. First, let's head to the sale ring, where a bold and boxy breed of sheep, originally from Holland, has been in the spotlight. And as CCM auctioneer Ted Ogden explains, the surge in popularity for blue Texels shows no sign of waning.
So just held our Bank Holiday Monday sale of breeding sheep, and it's included a special spring sale for pedigree blue Texels, and what a day they've had. 1,700 guineas was the top price to Messrs Stevenson of Lonsborough, who also achieved 1,500 guineas for another year with lambs at foot. Islay Lane Hartley from Roughly were selling away 1,100 for sheep with lambs at foot and 1,300 and 1,200 for geld gimmer hogs, and the Andrews also achieving 1,000 for geld gimmer hogs. A very pleasing day, and the blue Texels obviously a breed that moving forward and becoming far more popular than previous years. In a commercial shape, the hogs with lambs at foot were one of the best trades of the season. The Stapletons from High Skybden hit 370 for Texel hogs with Beltex lambs, and also at 300. Richard Stockdale from Burnsall was topside of £300, and Ellie Crisp, together with Nick and Charlotte Brown from Lancaster, were also in the £300 bracket with theirs. Mule hogs hit 255 from Colin Stubbs at Rathmell and 245 from William Wildman, but plenty of others in the 200-230 region as well. Best of the ewes with lambs at foot was Ian and Mary Lancaster from Clitheroe. They hit 650 and 500 twice for Beltex sheep with lambs at foot. Long-standing Mart supporters Richard and Patsy Hodgson from Skipton were also at 310. And in the mule sheep, Johnny Metcalf from Linton reached 285 for young mules with twin lambs at foot. Breeding sheep sales will continue every Monday during June, so long as sheep are there for sale and people require them. So please let the office know by Friday lunchtimes prior to the Mondays of what you might be bringing so that we can arrange some buyers. Fat sheep sales are still boiling quite nicely. The spring lambs, 345, 350 over the course of the last fortnight. And as long as these lambs have got plenty of meat on their back, they're okay at 38s to 42s. Plenty of customers for those handy weighted lambs in there for varying the jobs. The heavy lambs obviously picked up by retail butchers and farm shops, but I think as long as we're seeing averages like this, then keep going amongst your sheep at 340, 350 pence a kilo for nice backed fed lambs, and 325 to 340 for commercial grass fed lambs off milk, and keep them coming. If you want to talk about it, then the office is open. Give us a shout and we'll have a chat there.
Ted Ogden with the latest from the sale ring at Skipton. Now, something that's likely to be on your mind: money. Brexit and the transition from the EU subsidies and support to a UK farming policy means an inevitable shake-up of government funding, schemes and grants. If you're worried or confused about what's available now and in the future, here's Meg Schofield from WBW Surveyors with a helpful checklist.
WBW are keeping up to date with the emerging information on schemes that might be available over the agricultural transition period. We've seen the last round of the Countryside Productivity Small and Large Grant Schemes, which proved to be very popular for items such as mobile and fixed livestock handling systems and much more. What might be on the horizon in terms of grant funding going forward? Well, DEFRA are working on the Animal Health and Welfare Pathway, from which grant funding will be available for increasing farm productivity in an environmentally friendly way. This will be split into two schemes. The Farming Equipment and Technology Fund will mirror the Small Grant Scheme and most likely allow farmers to apply for a grant to buy items very similar to those in the Small Grant Scheme. So for beef cattle, items such as cattle crushes and foot trimming attachments, calving detectors, auto cattle weighing equipment might be available, however the eligible list has not been published yet. The second part of the scheme is the Farming Transformation Fund, which will support larger investments, much like the Large Productivity Grant Scheme, which again the details have not yet been published. Both of the schemes are set to be available from autumn 2021, so we are urging anyone who might be interested to get in touch and get their names on the interested parties list so that we can keep them up to date and informed as things progress, and if required, help with applying for grant funding. Another grant to be aware of is the Slurry Investment Fund, looking to be available in late 2022 to help towards better slurry management. The information at the minute is very limited, however it's hinting towards grants for building new slurry stores, slurry scrapers and much more. However, I suspect that there is still a lot more work to be done before the finer details emerge. One thing that's certain is that there's going to be a big shake-up in everything that we've become so used to. It's likely there'll be some teething problems, as there always is with new schemes. However, DEFRA are recognising that these schemes need to be more user-friendly, so we can only hope that the feedback is taken on board for a smooth transition into ELMS. If you'd like any more information on the grants that might be available, or you'd like to get your name on an interested parties list, please get in touch with WBW.
Meg Schofield, and there'll be more financial pointers from Meg in the months to come on the Farming Country podcast. There's just enough time to check in on the vet, and some timely advice if your cows are still in calf. Calving later in the season can have its benefits, and there's something special about calves being born outside in the sunshine. But alas, with pros come cons. Here's Jonathan Stockton from Craven Farm Vets.
Later calvers now, just getting them too fit to calve really and ending up with big calves. So just keeping them on a restricted pasture if you're turning them out. Don't let them get too fat, so restrict their intakes. That's the best thing.
Coming into dairy young stock will be out nicely now. Heifers, bulling heifers for the beef herd will be coming out. What do we need to be looking at now they've been out a while? Yeah,
dairy heifers, usually we're looking to worm them any time after about a month after they've been out, so just keeping an eye on those, but usually 8 weeks post turnout would be a good time to think about worming them. But the old dose and move is now really not something that you want to do. You want to be left on the pasture for about a week after you've wormed them rather than dosing and moving.
That's veterinary surgeon Jonathan Stockton from Craven Farm Vets. If you've got a story to tell and you'd like to share it with us, send us an email. You can do that easily from our website, ccmauctions.com. We'd love to hear from you. And that's all for this edition of the Farming Country podcast. Our next episode will be available from Friday the 25th of June. From me and all the team here in Skipton, thanks for listening and bye for now.